I'm ready when you guys are.
Let me know when we're ready.
You're live.
All right, great, thank you. Good evening, welcome to the Finance Board meeting for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 PM. The first item on our agenda tonight is to review the fiscal year '24 audit results, and for that, we have our town accountant, Ellen, here. So I'll turn it over to you, Ellen.
Sorry, I didn't know I was recording in the other results. I don't even have them with me. I mean, they were great. I don't know if you watched Laura present at the select board meeting.
Yes.
But everything, we have a clean audit opinion. We cleared all our management letter points from last year. So there are no outstanding points. There is a management letter, since they were bought out twice. The CBIZ has a different format, so they just have a standard, they almost list like responsibilities of management as opposed to giving recommendations. But all of the points from the previous year have been cleared, and we have no new or material points that they want us to address. So that was exciting. It took us, I believe, 7 years to get them all cleared, so. There were a lot of them, so it was exciting. All the financial results were positive. Again, she didn't have anything to report. There were the usual questions on OPEB and how that all works. We continued to contribute to that liability and will be for quite some time. It's in our finance policy to continue the 85,000. And other than that, it was just clean financials. She was happy with the audit itself. Happy with our response time, and there wasn't really anything negative to say.
That's good.
Yes.
How long did that
Give exact financial numbers, I apologize. I did not know I was reporting on the audit tonight.
How long did that process take working with that auditing team? Is that a few weeks?
They're out here for a week, and then they go in the office for a while, and then they have their own quality control to actually produce the financials. But as far as pulling information from office, it's about a week to 2 weeks. Sometimes they have some lingering things.
Sure.
But they have like a secure online portal now, so we can upload almost anything if they still need something, so they don't have to come back out.
Right.
And, you know, we've all made it pretty clear that when the auditors come, you sort of wipe your schedule as much as you can and just get them in and get them out, get them what they need, because they have a job to do. You don't want it to go longer than it needs to or become a headache for them, so. Yeah.
Just that I did watch a select board meeting that organization was at. Laura was her name, I guess. She was the
Yes.
auditor.
Yep.
Very informative, first and foremost. I found most of it was very knowledgeable information. I'm glad you mentioned it, because that was my one question this evening, whether it was you or Rebecca, was that $85,000 charge that we pay into every year. And my only real question is, now that you explained a little bit.
Apologies, is the mic off?
I'm sorry, here it is. My apologies. I guess my question is just a little bit more explanation, because I really don't fully understand that. From what I understand from that meeting is this is a trust fund that we put yearly funds into to support post-retirement,
Yes.
whatever,
Other
benefits.
post-employment benefits is
Okay.
what OPEB means. So when employees retire, they get a pension and they continue to be on the health insurance, usually go down to the Medicare plan. And they get, they still have to pay their share and the town pays its share. So it was discovered that towns were not saving for this, that the retirement assessment only covers their retirement. It doesn't cover that town share of whatever benefits that are continued after they retire beyond basic pension. So what we do is, we have an actuary every year go over all our payroll information. And the best way that they could come up with, being GASB, Government Accounting Standards Board, is, how do you assess such a liability? So all they can do is assess it as of a date. So the actuary will take that date, I think it's December for them, and they kind of look at, of all the employees and retirees we have, how much would it cost the town if everybody just retired today and we needed this liability? And I don't remember a number, it's like $2 to $5 million. So all they can do is post this liability. So it's not good to have a huge liability on your books. It's irresponsible to not set money aside for such costs that could come up. So they decided that each town, city, town, entity should be contributing towards reducing this liability. So that's what the 85,000 is. So the liability that you would see on our balance sheet is the difference between what the actuary said it is as of that date and what we have saved as of that date in OPEB. And
Okay.
that's sort of the gap that we have to close.
Okay, and then just my last question as it pertains to that. I know during that meeting, it was either one or two select board members had asked about some of the math, instead of putting that money into the trust fund, if they were just to spend it out directly to pay for the insurance policy to cover the retirees and things like that. It was, the auditor had explained, well, it doesn't really work that way because now the math is now different. Are you-
So if you're not
would-
contributing, that
Yeah, the math will be
gap
different.
gets larger,
Yeah.
so you have a larger and larger liability, even though you might be reducing a current expense, you're
Okay.
increasing a huge liability, which puts the town at higher risk.
Okay, all right, thank you. I thought that's what it was, but I had to hear it from an expert, just so I can get it in my head, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any?
Yeah, I found her, Laura, her elaboration on OPEB a little curious this year, because I always felt like it was this huge number that was practically insurmountable for so many of the cities and towns in the state. And yet, then we were putting this money aside, and I know that the auditors thought that was a great step and that we were making steady way in accomplishing. But she sort of made it sound like, well, we don't know if we're ever going to need that money. We don't know if we're ever going to access that money. We don't know. It sounded a lot more vague and arbitrary in this particular conversation than conversations that we've had about it before, which makes me think,
What are we doing?
should we be putting, I don't think that it's a tremendous amount of our budget. I felt like we were doing something so responsible. That's a feedback that we've always gotten, and this was the first time I felt like we were getting
It
kind of
was
a
the
different
same
message. Did you hear
feedback.
that?
She did make a comment, like, it's not a legal technical requirement, but if we don't contribute to it, all our bond ratings are going to go down. It's going to get harder to get debt or get debt at grid rates.
Yeah.
It does leave a gigantic liability on the town's
Balance sheet.
balance sheet. And it just, to not contribute to such a huge liability. And if you don't and you try to spend it, it's gonna make that liability even larger, which again makes the rating. It
Right.
just makes us financially look unsound. And then, it just goes back to the concept of where do we wanna be? Do we wanna go back to ways of, well, an emergency comes up and we can't
Yeah, no,
pay
I'm
for
all
it?
about
The whole point of this is to have those
anticipating and policies and
contingencies
planning.
set aside.
Yeah.
So, and you can use it you just wouldn't want to use it while you still have a liability. And then it's hard to say when you use it, because if the market has a dip, then your liability is going to increase because you're not having those earnings. So you sort of have to leave some leeway. You can fund it 100%, but then you probably shouldn't use it once you've funded it 100%. You should probably use it maybe at like 120% when you have a little leeway within it to adjust for market. And then you could probably talk about having, maybe you contribute, I don't know, a half or 3/4 of the earned interest and let that go toward the budget every year to cover, retiree health and life insurance costs. But it will be a few years before we get there.
That's helpful, thank you. And one other question is, I know that we've talked before about the concept of maybe using a different auditor from time to time, which I thought we were doing this time, till I found out it was just our old auditor under a different name.
Yes, they
Which
got
sort of
bought
brought it
out
back into
twice
my
really
mind.
quickly.
Is that something that we would,
So the point of doing that is just to get best costs. I mean, audit
is
it's
it
generally the
best
same
costs, or is it about having a
procedure.
second set of eyes?
Audits are audit procedures. It's literally like a checklist. We used to have like booklets. That's how old I am, but.
A lot
but-
of it is sampling based anyway.
Yeah,
so
you're
they're not
taking
looking
formulas.
at every transaction or anything like that, so they're gonna come in, assess a risk, and then determine what their sample size needs to be. They'll pick their sample, and from that, they extrapolate if there's any issue or anything like that. So the methodologies are the same from firm to firm, because there's, GASB, just like there is for, other public companies, FASB, whatever, pronouncements they have to follow. So really when it comes down to like the audit firm, you're looking at, cost associated with it if you had.
Yeah, if you look at the regulation or the guideline around looking for new audit firms, it is all based on procurement. So it's checking in every few years to make sure you're getting the best cost for those services. The services themselves generally don't change too much from firm to firm because they have a set of rules and guidelines they have to follow. I mean, even deciding how many samples they're gonna pick, it's all a formula based on our numbers that they put in a sheet. And it's a checklist of steps they have to go to ensure that there's nothing material that would affect, bond rating or investor decisions or residential decisions. You probably don't wanna move to a town that isn't looking very great.
There is always the risk that the longer your relationship is, I don't want to say the less likely they are to scrutinize anything, but, because that's where you hear, like, back
I
in
think
like the 90s,
That
you had
puts
all
their
those
firm
audit,
at risk, though.
you know,
And
that
they're
puts
always
them
gonna
at
put their
risk,
firm
so-
first. That's a huge risk for their firm if
you
they
haven't
started
heard
doing
those
that.
same accounting scandals like you did back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when you had like Arthur Anderson and those other, when it went from like Big 8 when I started to Big 4 when I left, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? All right. Then Ellen, you're on the hook for the next one too, which is just an update on the fiscal year '25 budget. I know I signed the transfers that were approved at the last meeting, but just figured you could give one final update before we close out the fiscal year.
Yep, we don't expect any more transfers. I sent out the May information, which is looking great. We're about $464,000 over in our revenue budget, which is mainly due to local receipts, motor vehicle taxes, interest income, building permits, the sort of usual suspects in that area. Local receipts themselves is $560K over. Our collection rate is now up to 99%, which is about where we run. That's the higher end of where we run usually. So that is looking great. We shouldn't really see any more taxes at this point, maybe a few stragglers, but that's a quarterly billing. So revenues are pretty set. It will just be local receipts coming through for the most part for June. So I am hoping, we do have the June state aid payment coming in too. So I'm hoping to see that go up to about 500K, but we shall see. Expenses, a little lower than 11-month projection at the end of the May. We're spent about 87%. That's a hard one to judge even at this point. So we had, I think, 3 million left at the end of May, and at the mid-June, we're at 1.39 left, and then that includes all the articles. So if there's unfinished projects, like if those articles are gonna encumber forward, you can't include that in the number that falls to free cash. So it's harder to say. We still have, I think, another payroll and a half to come out of the 1.4. I'm hoping that it'll be 150. That's conservative. Conservative 150, hoping for more to fall to free cash. But again, that's a tough number to say, but they're still looking great. We're still running better than what a projection would show. And I don't know of any surprises for June. I have not been informed of anything, and I have not been informed by any departments that they will need transfers beyond what was already voted. So that is looking good. We'll definitely have far more details to report once we can close out for the whole year. But that's where we're at. It's all very positive.
Great.
So from a finance board point of view, you know, we have to sign us, so if there's any changes, do you see any maybe changes coming up?
No, I'm not aware of any. I believe we have until July 15th. So we have a little bit more time, but I am not aware of any, and I don't see any when I look through the detail. Nothing's popping out at me, so I would be surprised if we have any more transfers.
And departments know that they need to be within a certain budget at this point, especially.
Yes, I send out a reminder email, usually mid-May. I think it was a little bit late this year. Just letting them know they should be wrapping up their year, they should know where they are. It's, if you feel like you're going to be over, it's time to let us know now. So they've all been hopefully looking into their financials. They're usually pretty good about it, so.
And then obviously, if anything comes up, you can let me know and we can reconvene before the deadline on the 15th.
Yes, yep.
To review those.
So if the revenues came in around 560 over and you think about 150 could fall to free cash, that from expenses, that's about 7, that's gonna bring the free cash pretty much in line with last year's free cash, no?
Last year, we were at 1.2, I believe. I was hoping for 5 to 7 this year. I can't really give that yet. I don't know
The
where some of the other.
7, but then whatever we didn't spend from free cash last year, there was a couple.
Yeah,
hundred
so it's,
left, I
it's
think.
those things that fall, and then the whole free cash number starts with undesignated fund balance, which is kind of like your equity section in business, and they do adjustments from there. So whatever we voted at town meeting is obviously not available, so they reduce it by that. If we have any liabilities, that would reduce it. I tend to accrue for most of those, so I don't think we get reduced too much for those. And any grants that we don't receive the funding back, I'm probably gonna screw up the date, but I think it's August 31st. If they don't submit for reimbursements, whoever's managing the grant, and we don't get the money back by a certain date, I can't remember if it's August 31st or September 15th, they would reduce it by that as well, considering that unavailable, like the town would have to cover it if we don't get the money back.
Good, thank you.
Does anyone else have anything for Ellen? She's off the hook. Great, thank you, Ellen. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for our last meeting, which was May 21st, 2025. Ruth had sent those out for everyone to review prior to the meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve those minutes. They appear to be in order.
I'll second that motion.
Adam and Mark. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on those? See who was, I was not at that meeting. And then Chris and Alex. Okay, so, all right, no discussion, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, so you have 5, and then I'll abstain. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the reorganization of the finance board. I put this on kind of in advance of the next fiscal year so that we could have the conversations around this. I've chaired the board for the last 2 years, so I believe it's the town bylaw that limits the chair to a 2-year term, basically, and so then we would have to rotate this among other members of the group. I know Bill's not here tonight, so I don't know if there was anyone who wanted to have the discussion tonight, or if we wanted to wait until our next meeting in July, but I wanted to kind of put this out. So, does anyone have any thoughts, any?
Does anybody want to do it?
I feel like I've done my time. I've chaired or served as secretary, or kind of sort of both for 10 years now, so
That's fair. I'm not trying to push it.
I would sort of like to, I think it would be actually just healthy for the board to have some other rotation and some other.
I'd be willing to give it a go if there was support for it. I mean, doing the CPC, what's one more? But again,
Well, I'm right there with you, because I've been added to a few more boards since our last meeting, so, is there a motion?
Do
we want to,
you want to make the motion to reorganize, or do you want to sort of
Wait for Bill?
put it out
We
there
can
and give
wait.
it some thought and wait for
yeah,
Bill?
we can do that, that's fine.
It doesn't matter to me either way.
I just wanted to, give the opportunity for people to, knowing that I have to pass the
Stepping
torch.
down.
Pass the torch to somebody.
Sure.
I wanted to just give the people the opportunity to think it through and figure out, what they have for capacity. So that we can continue this at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, we're gonna just quickly, before we plan the next meeting and agenda, we're just gonna jump ahead. Other items not reasonably anticipated. We found out, just a short while ago, Adam serves as our CPC representative, and he was appointed to fill a term for someone who left
Yeah, I
the
guess.
finance board early.
Yeah.
And so his appointment actually is ending June 30th. So Annie had reached out to him, and he let me know that we would need to appoint someone to the CPC. I am all for making the motion for Adam to continue as our representative. He's done a great job from everything that I've seen and heard, so.
Thank you.
Does anyone want a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a first and a second. Any discussion on that? Anyone want to steal his thunder?
I'll just say thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I'm honestly, I'm having a ball with it,
You are.
and I feel like we've made a lot of good changes. Kind of be a little more on top of the projects instead of just kind of letting them float, so.
It's a unique committee to be part of because it consists of representatives of other committees in town as well as, I think, residents at large
Residents,
too, but,
What we just added this year, with a bylaw change, we added 2 public members, so now,
yeah,
you know, it opens it up to a few more voices.
yeah. So, I think that's kind of unique, and I think it's a great sort of perspective. I like it. And I really think that committee does great things throughout the town. And on our way here, I mean, all the cars parked at the end of that community trail all the time. I love seeing that. All good.
All right, so there's the motion and the second. All in favor?
I'm gonna not vote for myself.
He's going to abstain. Okay, so with that, then, does anyone else have anything that they need to bring up? No, okay, so then with that, the next meeting would fall to June 16th, which is the third Wednesday of July, yes, thank you. July 16th, which is the third Wednesday. Again, we would do this 6 PM because we are outside of our budget season. And then, Ellen, you can just let me know if there's any need for a meeting prior to then, so that we can review any transfers that might be needed.
Yes.
Perfect.
And do you guys have copies of the financial statements?
I do.
Okay. I have a bunch of hard copies in my office if anybody wants them.
Yes, please.
Big, thick book. All right, great. All right, so then that's the next meeting, no other items. So that's a nice, easy meeting.
Oh.
There.
Minutes.
Motion to adjourn,
So motioned at 6:29 PM.
6:29.
I'll second that motion.
There's a second. All right, all in favor? That's everybody. Thank you.